Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for Mercury in Virgo. Mercury is the planet of communication. So it's the way that we express ourselves to others, as well as the way we take in the information expressed by others and process it. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, and it rules the 6th house of health and work, and is ruled by Mercury. So Virgo is in its rulership. Mercury is in its rulership in the sign of Virgo, and also exalted. And this makes it function at its peak level. And this is great for mental pursuits. Now, the other sign that is ruled by Mercury is Gemini. But unlike Gemini, Mercury and Virgo people do not think as quickly and do not kind of process things as quickly. They do tend to be a little bit more cautious about the information that they receive. And I think one of the reasons why is because they are so much a perfectionist and an analytical type that they want to make sure that the information that they receive seems credible, plausible, and therefore their mind is not as quick to make a judgment on a situation, but it's more thorough as a result. Mercury in Virgo notices the little details. And this is important when you're doing a certain type of work where you cannot afford to make a mistake and to ignore a particular piece of information, detail. This makes Mercury in Virgo a natural when it comes to research and when it comes to any form of organization. Now, what's the downside of this type of mind? Well, if a Mercury in Virgo person meets somebody for the first time, they will tend to already have these preconceived notions and put that person in a box, like filing them in a cabinet. Oh, this person is this person is that. And it's funny, when I was reading about this information, what I have been doing for each of these Mercury signs is looking online just to see what they say. I could do it off the cuff myself, but I want to get as many attributes as possible. And I was actually kind of surprised to see this, because I don't know that this is going to be true to a serious degree. And one reason I don't necessarily believe this about Virgo is because Virgo is a mutable sign, and mutable signs are flexible. And so while having a moon in Virgo myself, and some of these personal planets or points will have similar attributes, maybe slightly different functions, there will be a commonality there. I think that the idea of putting people into boxes holds water, but I think that the person is capable of changing their mind. Unlike maybe a Mercury and Scorpio person who has very strong feelings towards people, but not necessarily can easily change their opinion on people. So how the site that I derive this information, called Codex Astrology, characterize this as prejudice, prejudging. That's what prejudice is. Again, I think that some of these terms are a bit to the extreme, and that's just my 2 cents. I think that Virgo, if it's the sun, if it's Mercury, if it's the moon, has a tendency to analyze things, everything that comes across its path, and make, maybe value judgments. This is good, because of that critical nature. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are really prejudiced. Like I consider myself having a moon in Virgo, which is your emotional nature, to really, have that judgmental side. But at the same time, true prejudice is when you treat other people based on your judgments of them. If you just have in your mind, okay, I think I'm analyzing this person to be this way, but you treat them as an equal, that's a totally different animal. So I think there are nuances there that may be lost, and I want to kind of bring that up for people's, review, especially Mercury and Virgo's review, because you're going to review just about everything. But as I said, this can create an organized mind. Even if you're putting people into different categories, it can sometimes be very helpful because you're able to cut to the chase. You're able to see if that person has value in your life. That doesn't mean, by the way, that a person with Mercury and Virgo is going to escape negative relationships, I think, because you have to go by more than the Mercury sign. And Virgo sometimes can be quite take a back seat to their partner because they're unassuming. And that could open the door for relationships where there is, disrespect and things like that. And that's one of the things, too, that must be also highlighted here is that as critical as a Mercury and Virgo person is on others, they are just as critical, maybe even more so, towards themselves. And this can lead to I feel that this can lead to a sense of being unsure of one's own abilities because you're being too much of a perfectionist. This is definitely a characteristic of any sign in Virgo is perfectionism. And my feeling is that perfectionism is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, if it's taken to the extreme. Because if it compels the person to be obsessed with an ideal, that can really create problems in their life. And they can end up being less productive because they're so hyper-focused on a detail that isn't quite how they want it. Because the sixth house that Virgo rules connects to health, Mercury is connected to diet. And this can create somebody who, I think it's possible that even eating disorders or orthorexia could result with an afflicted Mercury because this is one of the aspects of a very strict diet is that the person does not allow for any kind of deviation from it. It may be too severe, and yet they have this perfectionistic ideal that they're going for, that they're shooting for, and that can lead to them instead of embracing health, embracing deprivation, embracing stressing out too much about what they're putting into their mouth, which is orthorexia, thinking that they're going to poison themselves if they're not eating a totally clean diet, but taking it to that extreme. The other thing about this is that when this is applied in a work setting, the person, I would think that this lessens your ability to be creative because you're so focused on doing a perfect job about anything. And this is one of the things that I would really like to impress upon people with Mercury and Virgo, because you may be really talented writers, for instance. And you need to relax, let go. There's a book. Oh, what is her name? As some of you probably know what I'm talking about if you are interested in writing. But I think is it Julia? I think it might be Julia Cameron or something. And I think it's for all types of artists. But she calls it my morning pages or something. The morning pages. And it's like, if you're a writer, just write 3 pages a day. And don't even think about what you're writing. And the whole idea is just to get your juices flowing and get that, I'm sure it's to get that perfectionistic, parental figure that's wagging their finger at you out of the picture so that you can just be free from the tyranny of overthinking things, because that is definitely going to be a challenge for Mercury and Virgo. And if you have an afflicted Mercury, in other words, if Mercury makes hard angles to other planets, like squares or oppositions, then that can be even more so problematic in that regard. But I bet even people without an afflicted Mercury and Virgo have this challenge. It's just the nature of the beast, given what the sign represents. So in terms of the type of work, being a nutritionist, being that with that health angle, that diet angle is a natural for Mercury and Virgo. Also, anything where they have to organize data, so databases, a librarian, hello. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. And so, and a researcher too. But I would say even like and they mentioned organization, so I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but you could even say like somebody who organizes people's spaces. What do they call them? They go in and if you have that spatial intelligence where you can see where everything should be, because a Mercury and Virgo person probably believes that there's, what was this thing? A place for everything and everything in its place. And they can spread that information to other people. How to be more efficient. So like a consultant on how to do things more efficiently, whether it be in the workplace, whether, if you work for yourself, they could be great consultants on that. So I'm giving you guys some ideas if you're looking for a home-based business. You are the natural organizer, so you can help other people how to do things more efficiently so that they have more time to themselves if they work for themselves. Now, you see, I just tripped over my words. When I was first starting to do videos, I edited to make sure, heaven forbid, I didn't make a mistake, and now I don't do that. Part of the reason is that it's not as easy anymore. They don't make that available, but it's really freeing because it's better to have this attitude that you're trying to do your best than to just beat yourself up all the time and say, I flubbed that line, or I missed that detail. So definitely you gravitate towards those types of positions. You make a great office manager where you have to handle everything. You might, because, again, it's Virgo is a mutable sign. So you would enjoy having different tasks, I'm sure. So being an office manager, you get to answer the phones and you get to figure out what needs to be done, create the schedule, all that good stuff that you would like. Now, in terms of how this type of person relates to others, suffice it to say, being critical of others, whether it's mentally or to their face, is something that comes natural to Mercury in Virgo, as well as the other personal planet Virgo placements, as I stated earlier. And I put down a word which I think is perfect for Virgo, persnickety. And that is I think the best synonym is probably, being picky, but picky to the extreme of like everything has to be just so. And, the princess and the pea syndrome of everything, it's not quite perfect. I'm not quite comfortable, or the food isn't quite seasoned the way I want it to be. There's something off. There's a little flaw in this situation. The movie we saw, it was good, but da 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 da. What is the crux of that behavior? What is at the heart of that? Again, perfectionism. If something isn't perfect, if something has a flaw, it can be troubling, And it's the thing is, it can steal joy if you think about it. And with other people, obviously, other people do not want to hear their flaws being, uttered or what would you call it, pointed out every 10 seconds. So other people will feel uncomfortable, and it could actually repel somebody that you would like to be with simply because of that overly critical nature. So this actually hurts the person with this placement because they end up alienating other people if they're not careful. But they're doing it to themselves. You're doing it to yourself, I should say. So it certainly isn't a case where you're trying to act like you're better than other people and that in order to make yourself feel better. You're in there with them, thinking, pointing out your own flaws to yourself. And so there again, that can be destructive. Mercury in Virgo is sarcastic, and it can really cut, right to the point, get right to the point of weaknesses in other people, knowing what they are and pointing them out. And that can be upsetting to others. Gee, you think? A person like this, if they have adverse aspects, they can be prone to nervous breakdowns. I pointed out, because I also said this for Mercury in Gemini, understand that the term nervous breakdown is a catch-all phrase. There's no one definition, which I was actually quite surprised. I suspect that a lot of nervous breakdowns are actually due to bipolar disorder. This is my own, opinion, because I love to read books on famous people, like, let's say, Hollywood stars or something like that. And they would always, for the past ones, like Judy Garland, for instance, they always say they were hospitalized for nervous exhaustion. And I always thought that was weird, because I was saying, is that really a thing? But, people who tend to have those highs and lows, the manic, and then they crash, sometimes that can lead to them being hospitalized. It's so serious. But, it's still, there is no actual official definition of a nervous breakdown. So, anxiety disorders, if it's not an actual breakdown, I think it's safe to say that panic disorder might fall into this category. So any kind of nervous disorder, a disorder of the mind that is due to the person overthinking and things like that, that type of person who has an afflicted Mercury has to watch out for being too mentally active, because you can think too much. Don't get it twisted. And sometimes people with a strong Mercury influence or an air sign, a strong air sign influence, really put so much faith in their mind. And they think that their mind can solve any problem. And the truth is, no. Sometimes the mind can turn on you. And you have to understand that. That's one of the reasons why I think Buddhism is so appealing to possibly, I've never done a survey, maybe a Virgo person, whether it's Mercury in Virgo or what have you, or an air sign, is because they often talk about the functions of the mind, or the mind's, the tyranny of the mind. They're very much into controlling thoughts, and really any type of meditation or Eastern philosophy is about, you are not what you think. Your thoughts are not you. And the more that you can put a distance between you and the thoughts that you think, the better. Even if Mercury in Virgo is quite astute in their observations, I still think it's helpful not to identify with your mind, the output of your mind, because it's still in that mundane sort of mode where it's looking at things from a worldly perspective. And at least as far as I'm concerned, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So it's not just about the world. A Mercury in Virgo person loves to read, usually. If you have Mercury in Virgo and you're listening to this and you never read, please, tell me, because you're probably a rare breed. They usually like to read, and unlike Mercury in Gemini, which tends to be quite sociable, Mercury in Virgo enjoys doing these pursuits alone. Virgo connects to the Hermit card in the Tarot. So Virgo people of all stripes tend to enjoy their alone time, and they will use it to read, to do these kinds of quiet activities. Maps. I don't even have Mercury in Virgo. I have the moon. I love staring at maps. Because these are systems, organization. Using puzzles can be fun for this type of person. And so this also tends to, I think a Mercury in Virgo person tends to collect information that is more practical and useful, rather than trivia, which sometimes a Mercury in Gemini person is, they're more interested in taking it from wherever they can get their information. Mercury in Virgo person is going to be more specialized. And so by virtue of that fact, they can actually become great experts in a particular area, which is wonderful, because then they have depth of knowledge, and other people can obtain information from them. So, I didn't see anything about this, but I think another profession that would be well suited for Virgo, Mercury in Virgo, is a teacher, just because of that love of knowledge. Okay. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you'd like a personal reading, the link is below for that. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.